Hi guys, I'm Judy Elmore and I'm a freelance editor with Black Wolf Editorial Services. Over the past few weeks, we've been talking about various different stages of editing. We've been talking about some of the editing tricks I use, show versus tell, pacing, and DPOV. Well, today I want to talk about a few more editing tricks that I use personally. In episode 2, we talked about reading aloud, playback apps, using dictaphones, acting it out, and of course, reading from a different medium. In episode 4, we talked about the was edit, the said edit, and crutch words. Today, we're going to talk about two more techniques that I use within the copy editing phase of my writing. The first of these techniques is what I call the backwards edit. Okay, I can almost guarantee there's somebody out there going, what is the backwards edit? Because that sounds really weird. And it is. Basically, what you're doing is you're starting from the last sentence and working your way backwards through your manuscript back to the beginning. So you start very last from the end and go backwards to the beginning. It is very hard going, but it's an incredibly useful copy editing tool. What it does is it removes your ability to focus on the story itself. So you are focusing on the words that you have actually written on the page. It changes the way your brain sees the words, so you can look exactly at what that sentence construction is, and you can look at it and go, do I really need all the words here? Does this make sense? Is it clear? That sort of thing. It is only used in the copy editing phases. I would never, ever use this in early writing because you're changing so much of that early writing that backwards read is just not going to be very useful. It is extremely hard going, and I think I've only performed the backwards edit on maybe 2 of my manuscripts, but these are ones that were I was getting ready to send out the door for submission. And so yes, it is an incredibly useful tool to have. I use this personally on my own writing, but I would not use it on client editing because it is incredibly hard going. And let's put it like it is, in the development editing phase, the backwards edit's not very useful. One of the other techniques I wanted to talk about was a top and tail edits. Now this, it sounds weird, but this comes back from my days of when I was doing nonfiction 100% of the time. It is about looking at how chapters transition or sections, how they transition. And what you do is you look at the last paragraph of the previous chapter and you read it through to the first paragraph of the next chapter. Or if you're looking at section breaks, then you'll do the last sentence or last paragraph before the section break and then into the next section and into the next section from there. It's how is it transitioning? Basically, what you're doing is when you're reading, you glance over everything that's in the middle. You're only looking at the top and tail of your chapters. And this is because the tail should have something that will continue to propel you forward, but the top should have a little bit of a description and a little beat of where you are in the story. It's a highly effective non-fiction editing tool, and in fact that's where I developed the skill. To give you an idea, when I was doing my PhD, my supervisor basically said he only ever read the introductions and the ends of my chapters. Everything that in the middle he didn't care. He wanted to only know the beginning and end because he wanted to know how it was transitioning between chapter to chapter, and I've carried that through. Within fiction, it helps you look at the cliffhanger concept. Okay, so you're looking at that tail. What have you got to propel you through into the next chapter? It's incredibly useful. I'll give you an example. Okay, so this is from my own writing, and at the end of chapter 26, and this is a manuscript that has not been released yet, so I'm still working on it and we'll see what happens. But at the end of chapter 26, she walked around in the back of the rental car and climbed into the front passenger seat. She then leaned over and started to program the address from the file into the GPS system, 818 Cherry Circle. Jimmy got into the car and started the engine. I take it you got some answers. Better, I got proof that the shadow was here. This, by the way, if you're interested, is actually a military thriller, so this is where it's going. Okay. The beginning of chapter 27 in the earlier edits read like this. So this is before I did a top and tail. Alexa and Jimmy became pulled up outside the house of Dr. Jeremy Evans. It was an old villa with weathered whitewashed slats on the exterior. Even though it was 2 stories, it was still small. The house would be lucky if it had a decent-sized bedroom on the upper floor. The section backed onto the forest, trees stretching up to the sun. But the house was not as isolated as Alexa would have liked. There were larger houses directly across the street. Okay, it's quite boring, to be honest. You know the setting, you know where you are, but that transition is actually quite rough, and we're not getting a feel of that you've got 2 assassins in the car, and you don't really know what's going on. So after the top and tail edit, the end of chapter 26 stayed like it is, but the beginning of chapter 27 changed dramatically. Jimmy followed the instructions provided by the GPS through the streets of Manzanita. Pulling into Cherry Street, Alexa and Jimmy took full note of the surrounding houses, how many were occupied, the proximity of the neighbors, and who had dogs. Jimmy pulled into the tree-covered street of Cherry Circle and reversed into the drive just outside the house that would have once been the home of Dr. Jeremy Evans. The for sale sign out front was a good start, but who knew what surprises could be lurking around. It's a lot more interesting. You have a lot more feel as to the type of characters that you're dealing with, and you know these 2, who happen to be assassins in the car, are getting ready to go to work. So in our next video, we are going to talk about critique partners and beta readers. We're going to talk about the differences between them and, of course, how you can find them, because they are incredibly important for writers if you're intending to get your work out into the world. That next video should be available in the next couple of days. If you have a question about today's topic or any of the other topics that we've talked about previously, please feel free to contact me, and you can contact me through Twitter, and that's at blackwolf_ed, or you can find me on Facebook, and that's Black Wolf Editorial, or you can contact me through my website, and that's blackwolfeditorial.com. Alternatively, if you are interested in my personal projects, you can contact me through Twitter, and that's at Judy L. Moore, or you can contact me through my website, and that's judylmoore.com. Meanwhile, I look forward to helping you take your writing to the next level.